Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be going over an interesting unique item, which is called the Earthbound Voltaic Staff. And we're going to be talking about this one. This is a lower level staff, it's only level 10, and it does have a requirement of 25 intelligence, but anybody can use it if you wanted to. It says grants skill level 4 lightning bolt and grants skill level 4 spark. Except when I put it on, I noticed that it doesn't let me actually bind spark to any skills. And even when you go over here, it doesn't actually have spark as an option for any of the skills. So that's kind of interesting. And I was trying to figure out why that was, but it's actually doing pretty interesting. Well, we'll have to go over this in detail. First off, let's just cover the stats, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty. So it does have 80 to 120% increased lightning damage, which of course is going to be very good for a lightning build. It does have 10 to 20% increased cast speed. Now, cast speed is really good. It definitely helps a lot for getting off multiple attacks more quickly. And so getting the 20% increased attack speed here would probably be a priority. It has 20 to 30% increased mana regeneration. And of course, if you have increased attack speed, you're going to have increased mana burn, which means that you're going to want to regenerate your mana faster. So getting 30% mana regen here would also be very nice. Now, the meat and potatoes of the item is trigger spark skill on killing a shocked enemy. So the entire goal here is to shock enemies and to basically kill them, which of course is going to release sparks from the dead monster, giving you a bonus. Let's see if we can do this. I'm obviously not a sorceress, but that is neither here nor there, because apparently anybody can do this. Choke point him, my friends. Choke point him. Choke point, choke point, choke point, choke point. We're going to choke point him right here. Let's go. Yeah. Gonna get him dead. Got a nice beat. Oh, yeah. Hit him in the head. Don't care what you say. Gonna hit him anyway. Gonna take him down and make them all pay. Hey, going down. Hit him with the ground. Gonna hit him in, dude. Ground. As you can see, this item is clearly not made for this level. I'm also not shocking the enemies like I would like to release the additional sparks. So this is definitely not going to work on its own as a basic ability. You would definitely have to include this with other effects to get the most out of it, I think. Yeah. What can we? I don't know if we can throw anything in to actually get this to trigger. I suppose we could grab some support gems for lightning. I don't think I have a single lightning support gem at all. It does look like you can at least put support gems into Spark, which is interesting. And you can put support gems into Lightning Bolt. So if you were to use a support gem, and you check out Spark, that's funny, it doesn't show anything for Spark. Can I even put a support gem in there? For Lightning Bolt, it shows Concentrated Effect, which of course would dish out more damage, but have a lower radius. Conduction, 100% more chance to shock, which would be very good with this particular item. Supported skills deal 30% more damage and hits with ailments. Supported skills cannot critically hit. Shocking hits from supported skills have 50% chance to also shock enemies within a 2.5 meter radius. That's not terrible. Spell Echo, of course you can get 2 attacks. That's kind of nice. It could make it easier to shock enemies. Recovering 4% energy shield when supported skill shocks an enemy, which this item is kind of designed all around shocking enemies, so that's pretty important as well. Mobility, supported skills, moving around better with it would be nice. 75% increased magnitude of shocks with the supported skills, but shocks have less duration. This actually, I don't know if that would be worthwhile. Huh. I mean, you are going for more shocks over longer duration shocks, so having them shocked multiple times might actually be a good thing, because you would want the shocks to wear off sooner to get a better effect out of this, right? Like, I'm thinking about this logically, And like the more sparks shocks you get, the better. If an enemy is already shocked, they can't be re-shocked. So reducing the duration of the shock could potentially end up giving you more shocks, which would trigger more sparks, right? Like logically, that seems to be the rotation in my head. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with the spark skill though. You can't bind it. I've tried this. You cannot bind it. You cannot do anything with it. I'm not even sure that you can put support gems into it. Let's just try and throw any support gem that we can in there. Let's see if this one will go in there. It might just tell us no. No. Oh, no, I don't want to destroy it. Give me back my stuff.
Don't think that will go down well here.
Let me see if I have any that could potentially work. I think I have Magnified Effect. Magnified Effect goes into here, but it doesn't go into here. What about Effect Duration? That one, okay, so you can put gems into it, even though it seems to be, like, broken. It doesn't show any stats. As you guys saw earlier, Spark also doesn't show any skill support gems, or recommended support gems anyway. Which is a whole nother thing. And, I'm not exactly sure what to think about why Spark isn't working on this particular item. My assumption is that if you shock an enemy, the sparks will just simply come out of the enemy. And it's essentially a way that you have kind of like an early trigger ability to be able to trigger a massive number of sparks. I mean, the entire idea of this item is just to design it around having as many sparks as you possibly can. Let's look at the board and let's see if we can find anything that might support this item. Alright, first off, let's take a look at shock. So let's just type in shock, which seems to be the most important thing with this particular ability. So we've got chance to shock, extra damage as lightning, and chance to shock. We also have 25% increased mana regeneration rate if you have shocked an enemy recently. As well as 20% increased magnitude of the shock that you inflict. Interesting. Mana regen, magnitude. We've also got 30% elemental damage if you've shocked an enemy recently, so that's another way you could potentially beef this item up. Over here, we have 25% chance on consuming a shock on an enemy to reapply it. That would be very, very effective with this particular item, because obviously you're going to want to reapply the shock as many times as you possibly can, giving you a massive amount of shocks, obviously. So even if you consume a shock, you immediately reapply it, and then you're getting another spark coming out, so that is absolutely excellent. That is another thing entirely as well, like maybe consuming the sparks or the shocks would be the best way to go about this. So getting as many shocks as you possibly can, and then consuming all of the shocks. 50% chance to increase electrocute buildup against shocked enemies. 50% increased shock chance against electrocuted enemies. Shocking hits a 50% chance to also shock enemies in a 1.5 meter radius, which is also going to help this item. So if any time an enemy gets shocked, they emit a spark, then that's essentially what we're going for with this. So you're just going to build as much shocking damage as you can so that you're shocking all the enemies that you can possibly shock. Then you're also going to set up so that, like in this particular case, it also shocks enemies around the monster in a 1.5 meter radius, which means that you get more shocks, which means more spark skills shooting off. So that is definitely really nice. Debuffs and inflict have a 10% increased slow magnitude. Debuffs on you expire 20% faster. Increased shock chance. Damage penetrates 15% lightning resistance. That's pretty nice. 40% increased electrocute buildup. 30% increased shock chance against electrocuted enemies. So that's another way. If you electrocute the enemies, you also get increased shock chance. What do we got here? 45 aftershock. That's not quite the same thing. Shock duration and lightning damage. Increased damage versus shocked enemies. I mean, this build kind of just like pulls in itself. Obviously, you stack as much shock as you can. You stack as much like ability to remove shock. So consuming shock is also a thing. So let's take a look at the skill panel. And let's just type in the word shock. We got to ignore the aftershock because apparently aftershock also pulls up. Resonating Bell, Tempest Flurry. These are melee attacks. We've got Charged Staff. We're looking for Consumes Shock. That's basically what I'm looking for. We also have Shocked Ground, which is nice. Shocked Ground would probably also contribute to Shock. Shocked Ground shocks those standing in it and lasts 6 seconds by default. So that would be a good way to add into the build as well, to add more shock. Let's just go to Elemental. Chance on consuming a shock to reapply it. That's really nice. Calls down lightning strike enemies, deals significantly more damage to shocked enemies, but consumes the shock. So yeah, you would want lightning conduit. So you would probably build this with lightning conduit so that you could consume the shocks that you're dishing out. And then this right here, you definitely would want quality bonuses, because it says here that you have a, what is it, a 20% chance on consuming a shock to reapply that shock to the enemy, which is definitely going to be nice. And you just have tons and tons of ways that you can apply and consume the shocks over and over again, which would allow you to constantly cast that spark spell over and over again. I mean, the build could be really fun, I think, if that's the way that it's working, is that it's allowing you to just consume, like, you shock, cast spark, consume the spark, shock, cast spark, consume the spark, etc. Like consume the shock, and you just constantly keep doing that, consuming the shocks and reapplying them, and just spamming tons of sparks as you're going. It's interesting. Anyway, as always, I appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about an ancient Asmeri staff overgrown by roots. And as always, keep watching.